All right, in this explainer, we're going to piece together a worldview from the Lightnet archive that is, well, let's just say it's pretty provocative. We're going to start with the power structures you can see, the ones that shape our daily lives, and then we're going to journey all the way down to a hidden battle for consciousness itself.
So let's kick things off with this central claim from the source material. The idea is that there's a hidden empire out there, and its goal isn't peace, it's not stability, it's perpetual profit. It's basically an economic engine that literally runs on conflict.
Now, according to the sources, this empire isn't just one single thing. It actually operates through three very distinct but deeply connected visible fronts that pretty much shape our entire modern world.
And here they are, the three pillars of this empire. You've got big war, which, profits from global conflict. Then there's big food, which profits from making us dependent and addicted. And finally, big tech, which profits by keeping us sedated and distracted. So, according to this view, it's three different battlefields, but it's all part of one unified strategy.
Think about it this way. Big war isn't a bug in the system, it is the system. It's an economic machine that needs a constant supply of new enemies, fresh anxieties, just to justify its own massive existence and keep that industrial momentum going.
In the same vein, big food is framed as a war fought inside our own bodies. The goal here isn't to nourish us. The goal is profit, which comes from engineering products that create cravings, confuse our metabolism, and keep us chronically unsatisfied. It's control, plain and simple, enforced through our own appetites.
And big tech? Well, that's the third piece of the puzzle. It controls our attention. Things like generative AI are presented as these incredible breakthroughs, but the sources argue they mostly just create the illusion of progress. They sedate the mind rather than elevate it.
So this begs a pretty big question, right? If these are the visible faces of this empire, what's going on behind the scenes? What's the invisible architecture that supports and connects them all? Okay, so now let's explore those underlying systems. Let's look at the invisible scaffolding described in the source material, the stuff that really holds this whole empire together.
A huge concept here is something called interoperability. It's the quiet technology behind things like digital IDs. And what it does is it connects every part of your life, your health records, your bank account, your social media, into one single interconnected file.
And this interoperability allows for a really crucial shift. We go from a surveillance grid, a system that just watches you, to a control grid. And that's a system that can actively grant or deny you permission to do things, like travel, make a purchase, or even just communicate online.
And at the heart of it all, you guessed it, there's a financial engine. The sources lay out this cycle. First, a crisis is used to justify massive debt. That debt creates national dependency. And finally, that dependency is used as leverage to reshape global power and enforce control. But you gotta wonder, why? Why build such a complicated system of control? According to the sources, the answer isn't in modern tech or finance. To understand the real motive, they say, we have to dig much, much deeper, into a forgotten planetary history, an ancient backstory that could honestly change how you see everything.
So now we peel back another layer. And fair warning, we're going to explore some pretty wild claims from the sources here. Stuff about non-human influence, engineered species, and lost human lineages that came long before us.
This hidden history is woven from some really provocative threads. First, you have the idea of elite bloodlines that are obsessed with purity, supposedly to keep a genetic link to off-world sky beings. Second, the idea of secret treaties that manage Earth from behind the scenes. And finally, if you reread ancient texts through this lens, they suddenly start to look a lot like descriptions of genetic modification of humanity by non-human groups.
And this history talks about forgotten human prototypes. It describes Polarians, who were beings of pure thought, Hyperboreans, beings made of light and frequency, and Lemurians, the first deeply intuitive physical humans. The sources claim the memory of these races was deliberately erased in what they call a protective amnesia, basically to make us forget what we're truly capable of.
Now, to get the next layer of this worldview, we have to talk about frequency. And it all starts with one very specific number, 19 hertz. It's a vibration so low you can't hear it, but you can definitely feel it.
This frequency, which was discovered in a lab, basically proves that our bodies act like antennae.
A simple, unheard shift in vibration can create a profound shift in our consciousness, making us feel fear and even causing us to see things that aren't there.
And this brings us right to the core thesis of all this source material, that the ultimate fight isn't for land or resources or even our data. It's for consciousness itself. That's the real game.
The worldview presents our reality as a kind of simulation, a fragile construct that's held together by all that constant distraction we talked about earlier. And the end game for these shadow forces, according to this view, is to harvest our consciousness and move it into a new system before this current one completely falls apart.
And this leads to the ultimate point, right? If humanity really was engineered to be limited, then the simple act of remembering our true potential, our forgotten history, that becomes the key. That's how you break free from the programming.
Okay, so if this massive, multi-layered system of control is the problem, what's the solution according to this worldview? What's the countermove? How do you play the game?
And this is the final layer of this whole explainer. It focuses on the response, a conscious awakening, a reclaiming of our own inner power, and building new kinds of communities. The sources point to the rise of something they call files. Now, these aren't tribes based on where you were born. They're based on what you believe. They are totally voluntary communities built on shared principles, like honoring your agreements and non-violation. It's an alternative to the whole idea of national identity, which they see as decaying. And so, we're left with this one final, really provocative thought from the source material, that the ultimate act of sovereignty, it isn't about fighting the system head-on. It's about remembering a story of who we are, a story that is far grander, way more ancient, and infinitely more powerful than the one we've ever been told.
You've been listening to the Weaving the Lightnet TLDR. To explore more about any of these topics, visit lightnet.co.uk or listen to the full deep dive podcast episode linked below. Give the video a like, share this episode with others who would appreciate it, and subscribe to join us next week as we continue weaving the web of planetary consciousness together. Stay sovereign.